And Father, we are so sincere to show you how much we love you. We love you, God, today, Jesus. And what a mighty God we serve.
What a mighty God we serve.
The creator of heaven and earth.
The creator of heaven and earth.
There are no words that to glorify the greatest name.
Glorify the greatest
When others are ashamed to say,
others are ashamed.
I will still proclaim.
You're mighty.
You are,
You're mighty
you
God.
are,
You're mighty
you
God.
are,
You're mighty
you
God.
are.
You're mighty.
Say you're mighty.
You're mighty.
You're mighty. I will.
Still proclaim.
Yeah.
You're mighty.
And what a mighty God we serve.
What a mighty God we serve.
And I will always put you first.
I will always put you first.
Come on, there are no words
There are no words that
to glorify.
glorify the greatest.
When others are ashamed,
Others are ashamed.
I will still
I
proclaim.
will still proclaim. You're mighty
You
God.
are,
You're mighty
you
God.
are,
You're mighty God.
you're mighty.
You're mighty.
Say you're mighty. I will.
I will still proclaim. You're mighty.
And what a mighty God we serve.
What a
Come on, that's all we're
mighty
saying.
God we serve.
Say it again. You're a mighty God we serve.
What a mighty God we serve.
One more time. And what a mighty God we serve.
What a mighty God we
Come on, lift up your voice and say, what a mighty God we serve.
What a mighty God we
Come on, take it up. Oh, and what a holy God we serve.
What a holy God we
He's holy, he's holy. What a holy God we serve.
What a holy God we serve.
One more time, say, and what a holy God we serve.
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 Hey, what a mighty God we serve.
What a mighty God we serve.
Mighty are the works of your hands. You're mighty, you're mighty, you're mighty.
Mighty God we serve.
Come on, what a mighty God we serve.
What a mighty God we serve.
One more time, what a mighty God we serve.
What a mighty God we serve.
Now come on, lift up your voice and give it glory. You're mighty God. You're mighty. You are mighty to save. You are a mighty good healer. We worship your name, Jesus. One more time, everybody. What a mighty God we serve.
What a mighty God we serve.
And I will always put you first.
I will always put you first.
There are no words. There are no words
That
to glorify.
We're back again, and we're still talking about the holiday blues. And I wanna have a discussion, or start a discussion today, just to talk about the times that we're living in, and really add to that the whole aspect of thinking about community. I often say community. I have this acronym: community is unity. Unity is unwavering in our commitment to community, nurturing to empower our community, innovative to enhance our commitment to community, and trusting to validate our community, and yielding to ensure that we function in the best interests of our community. Is to defend, is to strengthen, and to fortify. And I believe in the time we're living now, we need that kind of mindset, that kind of environment that allows for us to understand that community can't be just a word. It's got to be something that we implement. And being in the time that we're living in with this the season of Thanksgiving and then Christmas, family, but then on top of that, of course, we've been talking about the coronavirus and what that really causes us as individuals, the extra pressure that's on all of us, the extra pressure of death. I've been around a while. I've never been in a time where I've seen so much death, and it's so different now. And added to the coronavirus, added to the mask, added to social distancing. And after a while, you just get tired of people saying what you can't do, and you really want to do, but everybody's saying you can't do this and you can't do that. So there is this thing that I've been reading about, pandemic fatigue. And Leah, I really been wondering, how do we deal with pandemic fatigue, and is that pandemic fatigue even real from the standpoint of how does that cause us, or are we really willing to recognize that it even exists? Are we dealing with fear? Are we dealing with anxiety? Are we dealing with loneliness? Are we dealing with hopelessness? And how do we deal with this fatigue that all of us are going through? I know I'm going through it, and I may need a counseling session here today, but I'm going through it, and it's tough.
It is tough.
It's really tough because I think sometimes I think people expect something of me. Sometimes they don't have to say it to me. I actually think they have an expectation. And then it causes me to react to something that has not even been articulated because I just feel that they may want me to do this, or they may want me to respond. And it's just extra pressure. I think I would feel, I don't know how I'd feel if I said no. If I said no, how would they feel?
Mhm. Mhm.
If I said no, how would I feel? But I feel like I've done something wrong, or I should have done it, or I should have done it. And
Right.
even the apprehension to say no is there, along with the expectation that you think people want you to say yes to everything. So there's a frustration with all that emotional, psychological, physical. It's there. So can we start talking about the pandemic fatigue itself?
Absolutely. And I think to answer your first musing, absolutely it is real. And it's not a new thing. A lot of people think hearing pandemic fatigue, this is some new occurrence. But technically, fatigue has been around a long time. We generally speak about it as an adjustment, right? That this sense of psychological or emotional distress, as it were, would be because of some type of adjustment. You can also think about it as a physical fatigue, and we normally associate that type of fatigue with exercise. If I work out a whole lot, then my muscles are tired or they're fatigued, or if I'm up, these long shifts, 12, 14, 16-hour shifts, then I'm fatigued when I come home. So that principle of burnout and tiredness and exhaustion isn't a new concept, but what it's speaking to in this time is this pile on situation that we have. It's not just that we are battling this virus, it's that we're battling a virus that's unknown. And so we are learning about it at the same time we're fighting it. If we knew about it and knew everything there was to know, we would have been able to put together a strategy and then attack it. But we are actually studying on the job and making adjustments, right? So that adds to the stress of it. Then, in order to try to safeguard, because this particular virus has with it a significant gravity of death,
Yeah.
then we also have to come up with these social restrictions that is in our best guess a way to make sure we can keep people safe. And so now, where we have enjoyed the freedoms to come and go as we please, where we are able to not have to think about. I remember the first time Lester took my boys out and they just ran out the house. And I was like, hey, where's your masks? And they were like, oh, right? It's not something we are conditioned to think about. Now, those that go out more regularly are essential workers. Now that mask has become a part of their routine. But for the rest of us, that's a huge adjustment. So you have something that's unknown that we have to battle. We don't really know much about it. We have these social restrictions. And then on top of that, you have grief. Added to that, we have an election. Added to that, we have the holidays.
Right.
It is this perfect storm of
Mhm.
a lot of things that one by itself could be stressful, but you put it together like a fruit salad and it's not as delightful. Right. And so, what pandemic fatigue really is, and I hope I can kind of shift it a bit, is it is your body, mind, and spirit's warning signal that you've had too much. Okay. So remember, I'm trying not to use my props. But remember, I had talked to you all about these emotions that they show up and there are teachers, right? Right? These the yellow and the pink, there are teachers and they're there to make us aware. So if I'm sorry, I just have to do if I don't pay attention here, if I don't pay attention when these show up, and I'm like pushing through, because that's kind of what we're socialized to do. We do not, as a society, really favor rest and recovery. Our thing is, what can we do next? We got to keep moving, keep grinding, keep working. And so our body could be sending us signals, things like I may have had a slight headache, or I might just feel kind of achy in my body, or I'm getting short tempered. Somebody says something, what? And that's not my character to be that way, but I'm certainly starting to do that. Things that normally wouldn't irritate me, like loud music or the television or a phone call, is starting to irritate me. That's these. They're telling you that it's too much. And if you don't pay attention there, then your body sends you a warning signal, pandemic fatigue. Okay. And this is where you get more of that extreme irritation and just over it. Like, now I don't want to care about anything. I'm going out without my mask and you better not say anything to me about it. Right.
Mhm.
It's just this need to break out of it. But the reason we're needing to break out of it is because we're crushing underneath it. So what we have to do when we get the warning signs, we need to be able to recognize them. And certainly once we get to the place where we're starting to think fatigue, is we have to withdraw a little bit, restore, improve self-care and balance, and maybe we recalibrate the way we're living our life. So you mentioned about these expectations that others have. And again, I think it is one of the more uncomfortable aspects of our world for me as a therapist, because most of us make decisions based on the expectations of others and not the intentions of ourselves. So we live always evaluating either what somebody else might think about what we're doing, what do they need me to do in this role or in this capacity, and then we also think about, these are my little judgers, the shoulds, coulds, woulds, and ought tos. That by itself, if you remember the other week, I was stacking stuff and talking about weight that just weighs you down. Each time you bring a should, could, would, and ought to, that's just another weight that you're carrying onto yourself. So you really have to take a moment to step back and say, okay, I am only one person. It doesn't matter what your role is. It doesn't matter if you're a pastor, counselor, teacher, doctor, lawyer, clerical worker, essential, non-essential. It does not matter what your role is. You have 100%. That is it. And in that 100% capacity, you have to account for rest. You have to account for nutrition. You have to account for leisure. You have to account for family and friends. And you have to account for purpose. Obviously, spirituality. But we don't do that. We think, oh, I'm just going to give it 120%. And the best way to see this in a non-human form is our computers and our phones. When you plug that phone up, you can leave it on all night. And once it gets to 100, you never get a notification that says it has 120%. And when it gets down to the end, it gives you that warning, a little red little bar, whatever, that tells you your battery is running out.
Yeah.
Still try to talk on it or do whatever you're doing. But when it's had enough, it just powers down. And our bodies is the same type of machine. It is not built to constantly go and go and go and go and go.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Okay, I have a question, because the other day I was thinking about this. The thought came to me, in our time, how many voices are we listening to?
Great question.
And I thought about, okay, Instagram, some on Facebook, some on Twitter. It's just nonstop voices, news media, not just nonstop. And kind of, I was thinking, I said, Lord, how many voices are we listening to and you are excluded from a voice we listen to? Your voice is not being heard. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we listen to all these voices. But how often do we hear his voice?
It's so true.
And could be it's his voice that could assist me in this moment of calming down. And getting to a place of rest. But all these other voices, it's almost like these other voices send you on a spiral, and you don't know which way to go, what to do, and you just get tired of hearing all those voices. And I thought about it. We need to learn how to listen to his voice. Because I thought one thing that you said, and we can all talk about this, when you make the statement, it's too much. It's giving me a signal it's too much. The first scripture came to me was Peter, cast your burden on the Lord. That's the first thing that came to me. Cast your burden on him, for he careth for you. And if that's not real, God is not being utilized or as an intricate part of our day-to-day living. We should want him to be an intricate part of our day-to-day living. If Peter says, cast your burden on the Lord because he cares for you, what does that do? I thought, what kind of peace does he give? A peace that surpasses all understanding. Well, what kind of peace is that? How do you define that peace? if you're going through this and you're saying, I need peace, I need rest, I need this, I need that. But he said, I will give you peace. So what does that look like when he gives you peace? What does it look like when you get to the place where you say to yourself, okay, Lord, you know how people say, I'm letting the Lord have it. And I used to tell people all the time, you gotta tell me what that means, because how you let the Lord have it? Well, do you give him? Did you just hand it to him? How do you let him have it? That's why, to me, and y'all can jump in here. That's why, to me, faith has to be an intricate part of our life. Because casting your burden on the Lord is really about faith. It's a mindset, but it's about faith too. I believe that God can help me with this issue.
Absolutely.
And I'm going to talk to him like I'm talking to you all about my issue. And I'm going to say, Lord, I need your help on this issue. I need you to help me because this is how I feel right now. And I need you to do what I need you to do so that I can come out of this situation and survive what I'm dealing with. I really believe, I really believe we need to have that kind of dialogue with God instead of listening to all of these voices,
Yeah.
all of these voices, and none of these voices are giving me what I need. They're telling me more issues. They're giving me more problems. They're telling me where everybody's wrong, where everybody's not right. They're telling me about this group, this government, this president, this elected official. All I'm hearing is this noise that doesn't help me with my pain. In fact, it gives me more pain.
It does. And it reminds me of two things. One is kind of my concept of a spiritual part, and one is on the counseling side. And so when I think about that peace that surpasses all understanding and that concept of it guarding your heart and mind, that's what that peace looks like. It's like, for me, what I see is like this guardian to your peace, and this guardian to your understanding, and this guardian to your heart and your mind. It keeps it in check. And I think that's what kind of spiritual infusion you get when you connect to the Father in that way through prayer. When you're asking and you're laying aside those weights and that burden and you're casting it and you're praying, that brings that calm to you. On the practical side of it, that's just my interpretation of that. But on the practical side of that, one of the major coping skills that we will say for people who are experiencing this anxiousness or this depression or this fatigue is to turn some things off. Stop looking at the news. Turn off social media.
That's a good tip.
At some point, you need to just say, thank you for calling me and checking in, but I can't hear this today. Right? Because I have too much that sometimes we need to turn some things off. I don't know if you've ever experienced where like your lights are just on and this just everything is on. The TVs, the lights, the ceiling fans, just everything is going. And you just want to bring it down a little bit. So you turn the overhead lights on and you put on a lamp. And maybe you turn the volume down on the TV. Maybe it's just me getting older.
I don't know anything about that.
Calm, right? And we have to do that with the voices too. How do we shut out some of the noise?
I think one thing that has happened to people, especially over the last decade, matter of fact, 13, 14 years, is we've gotten used to being polarized. The last 4 years have been probably worse than we've seen it. But the polarization is so to the point where cutting out the noise or turning off and disconnecting from social media, television, things like that, it becomes too deafeningly quiet for some. And I think that when we lose our ability to go into those quiet places, and I really think this is what's happening with not only young people, but, we have so many people of so many ages now involved in, your social media, your 24-hour news cycle that's been happening for 20 some odd years. One of the worst inventions, I think, is the 24-hour news cycle. Because they need to make up things to keep us polarized, and to keep us talking, and to keep us, so I have really, especially in this season that we're going through right now with the election, and now people are really depending on a social media because they're not out, they're not living their life. So, this is the time we got to depend on God to even reset us and refocus us in our minds. Like, I'm an individual that has accomplished A, B, and C, and D. I have purpose. My life does not revolve around TikTok. My life does not revolve around Facebook and those things. And it's hard though, because when you do disconnect, for some people, when all they have is their own thoughts, they're also reliving their own traumas.
Yeah. But that's why I think disconnection needs to be strategic. It's not that you have to be in a what are those called? Solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is torture, right? And there's studies that show that if you're totally alone, people kind of lose their faculties a bit because we're not built. That's not how God designed us either, to be totally alone. However, I do think that we have to recognize the difference between this 24-hour access, like you were talking about, just this constant barrage of information and the fear of missing out. They called it on the campus, what is it, FOMO or something like that, FOMO. Like, just this fear. Oh, I'm going to miss something. But if I can just take 20 minutes away, if I can steal away for an hour, if I can dedicate a block of time that's mine. I don't owe it to anyone. It's mine, and I get to decide who comes in that space with me. It can be the word of God. I can pray in that time and study God's word and be replenished. I can use it to sleep if I haven't slept. I can eat, work out, or I can even invite a family member or a friend. And even in this COVID time, maybe we've got to do it outside, but is there a way that I can just give myself time? Just some time. It doesn't have to be 9 months by myself. It doesn't have to be a whole long time for myself. And even if that block of time is to go to a therapist to work on the traumas or the things that tend to make it more difficult to be in your silo, right? Whatever is necessary. What you're really saying is, I'm going to gift me.
That's good. It's another good tip right there, right?
Yeah, because I matter. Like, what do I gain if I, what do I gain if I give everyone else
really
all that I have? Yes, I'm going to give you something else, okay? What do I gain if I give everyone else all that I have and I'm depleted? So my grandmother used to sip tea. Was it tea or coffee? Maybe it was coffee. And I don't have a teacup. So we're going to pretend that this here is a teacup and a saucer. Okay. I love it. It's beautiful. But this is solid, of course. And so she would fill her cup of coffee up all the way. And technically, this is true. You can fill liquid beyond the top of the cup. I actually did a science fair project on that because of the surface tension. Well, she would lift it up above it and would walk ever so gingerly to her chair. And she'd sit down and she'd sip her coffee and she would be so slow. And we would just watch her. And it was like amazing to us as little kids. And she would just savor every bit. And all the while, her saucer was collecting coffee every time she turned the cup because it was so full. And she would just drink. And when she finished her coffee, she'd scrape the bottom of the cup. Now, that part kind of grossed me out, but she would scrape the bottom and she'd sit the cup down on the side. Then she'd take both of her hands around her saucer and she'd lean in. She kind of swished the coffee on the saucer and she'd... and then when she put this saucer down, sit back in her chair, and she'd go, mm.
Every little bit of it.
Every bit. Like, and so I asked her, like, Granny, why are we drinking off the saucer? And she said, oh, that's the best part. She said, this stuff was good, but it was the overflow. That overflow was
Yeah.
the best. And
Mhm.
as I've developed as a therapist, what I have come to recognize that we often give people out of our cup, but we do not give out of that overflow. And that is the sweet spot. We must be filled first. How can we be full? And the spillage is what we give.
Wow.
Because if I give you from this, I'm not depleted.
Right.
I'm actually giving you the best of me if I give you my overflow. It's when I start trying to give you what I have, and then I give you more of what I have, and then I give you more of what I have, and then I give you more of what I have. I am now empty. So I have nothing to give you, and I have nothing for myself. And this is pandemic fatigue.
That's good.
I am depleted.
Uh,
That makes sense.
Wow.
yeah,
That's good.
okay. I think so. So, I mean, in other words, you're giving so much that you are empty yourself.
And then we wonder why we have all of these ailments.
That's
I'm
true.
irritated, I'm tired, because your body is saying,
That's
pay
true.
attention. I need. And this is huge for pastors and leaders, because your industry is service. And to make it even more significant, it's God's service. And he's so massive that
Right.
as members, we can sometimes look to the leaders and have an expectation of them like God. They need to be, I don't mean any disrespect by this, but a type of God to us, the be all, end all to us. And
Yeah.
that's, whoa, you are human. But
Right.
pastors and leaders and people who have that big responsibility are so conditioned to pour out into others that they often forget you've got something else to manage.
Mhm.
And that's yourself. Where are you going to be poured into? How are you being refilled?
And I think that is so good. Both of you, that's really good, because I can relate to that, being people driven and more or less struggle with always giving out. And then when it comes to me being refueled, there's always that, well, what do you do for you? Well, I mean, well. And so even during this season, it's more draining, and I could relate when you just kind of like irritated, phone ring. I'm not answering today. I don't even care who it is. I'm not. But you get to the point where there's certain temperaments or personalities, or where you have always been that person that you make ways for everybody but yourself. I can even respond to even where the physical ailments, because I had to go have this special test done at Riverside, a couple of weeks ago, like some type of a X-ray, because of just different things coming up in my body, just all of this stress, frustration, but still trying to be the spiritual guru or what have you. And I love God. Okay. I was going through the fear thing, and I started sticking up notes about fear. That's been helping me. So the next thing is, scriptures and reference about me, how God cares about me. No is becoming more common in my vocabulary. Not that I don't care, but I have to care about me so that I can effectively reach out to those assignments that are mine. Everybody's not my assignment. So, but I still want to let people know I care about you. But if I can't do this, and if that turns you away from me, do you really care about me? Or do I care about me? But I mean, Sister Tillman and I went to a training on compassion fatigue. And
Mm-hmm.
years ago, we went to one of the PESI trainings, and this guy was talking about
he was a therapist. He was just talking about compassion fatigue, people that saw the 9/11 and different things, how it affect them, secondary
Secondary
PTSD.
trauma.
Yeah,
Mhm.
secondary trauma. It was such an awakening. And he talked about leaders, pastors, and people, and, just leaders, how they can take on, they can talk and help so many people. They start they go through burnout, compassion fatigue, because they don't know how that every time they give out, they're giving away a little part of themselves. And it was so profound. I was just sitting like this. Did I
Right?
come here? Yeah. So, sometimes I do better than others, but I'm learning people have expectations of you based on what you've always done. But until you change differently, and during this season, everybody wants a piece of the one that they know that will be there and listen. And I love helping everybody, and I'm going to still help everybody, but I have to set healthy boundaries for myself so that I can be effective.
Yeah.
That's just it's so good. This is good.
Go ahead.
One thing that stepped out to me as I've been listening to you all and just discussing, I'm reminded of Jethro, Moses, back in Exodus, when Moses visited with his father-in-law, and his father-in-law, you all know the story. I mean, he was basically observing him, and he told him, what you're doing is not good for you. It's going to wear you out. But what is interesting is that Jethro, not only did he say it's going to wear you out, but it's going to wear these people out as well.
Exactly.
And so the thing that Jethro, the piece of advice that Jethro gave Moses was use the people that are around you, that community, pour into them, right? Teach them the precepts and the bylaws and let them go out and do some of the work. The thought that came to mind in addition with that story, and I think what all of you have alluded to, is release. So Pastor Bishop, you were talking about, the pandemic fatigue. You're tired, you're worn out because you're carrying the weight, right? All that's going on. We're weighed down mentally. We've been in the house. Our norm has been has been thrown off kilter here. So we have a new norm. It's a frustrating norm. In many ways, it's solitary confinement norm, right? We can't go everywhere that we used to go. We can't do everything that we used to do. We can't do it in the same way. And as we've been discussing, particularly during this holiday season, that is very frustrating, right? I mean, because the holidays typically for many of us is that time of the year when we get together, we really get to see family. Many of us are on vacation from work. It's the downtime. But for many of us, that's not the case, okay? We work from home, so you're just always, the laptop, for many of us, the laptop is just always there. Or your mind is occupied with social media. You're always getting notifications. If it's not Facebook, then you're getting a Twitter notification, or, I'm not on TikTok, but maybe a TikTok notification, or you get an email notification, or somebody sent you a text, or somebody called. Now you've got the news on, the 24-hour news cycle, Rance, that you were talking about. And everything is always breaking news, right? Now, it's not really, because if you had the news on all day long, well, really, the story that somebody else just talked about 47 minutes ago, right? They spin it. Excuse me just a second. But the thought process is they're bringing in new people, or they have to keep that thing fresh in your mind, in somebody else's mind. That weighs us down. So we have to have, opportunities to release. Leah, you mentioned strategic. That release, it has to be strategic. There are different things that we have to do, right? Maybe I need to shut this off. There are times during the day I do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to miss anything, really. In our mind, that FOMO, fear of missing out, it's going to be there. Okay. The world's not going to stop. So maybe I shut that off. Maybe I deactivate some social media accounts for a period of time. It's still going to be there. Yes, we may miss out on some things. We'll be all right. Go exercise, go walk, pray, spend time talking to God, spend time listening to God, meditate. Something a buddy of mine who lives in Houston, by the way, earlier this year, as part of our fitness challenge, he encouraged me. He said, take 5 minutes every day and just meditate. Just lights off, just sit, lay, think. I think it's something that maybe in Christian faith, we don't do that, right? Our time of talking, our time of praying is talking to God, right? It's God, blah, 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 what I need, blah, blah, blah. Thank you, hallelujah. In Jesus' name, amen. Not, let me just rest in his presence. Excuse me. So we talked last time about journaling. So just really being strategic and purposeful, but finding ways to release, to block out all of that noise that we're getting, that we're being bombarded with, all of that clutter that comes into our mind, that all those things. Pastor, I need you to pray for me. So this happened, that happened, whatever. We're all in a community, and there are things that maybe we need to allow other people to do so that, hey, you know what? I'm a human being. I cannot, because it's going to wear me out. And if I'm worn out, trust me, I think somebody talked about it earlier, I'm going to wear you out. I'm probably going to wear you out with my tongue, with my attitude. I'm going to go off on you. And I may not necessarily mean it, but right. I'm just so built up that I'm going to lash out. A lot of times those of us who are married, we lash out at our spouse, maybe because they're the closest one, or we lash out at our children, or somebody who's immediately involved in our lives. So that we don't wear them out, we got to find those ways to release responsibilities.
Yeah. So we got a couple of things here. I was looking at some of my notes on this about how to deal with pandemic fatigue. Leah, you brought up something about take care of your body. Mm-hmm. The second thing was limit your news intake. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Right? Number 3, lower your stress. Mm-hmm. That's what Marx was talking about. I think this, I remember recently I was full of whatever, overloaded. Mm-hmm. I got in my car, told my wife, I'm getting in my car and I'm just going to drive. I went out to Alum Creek, mm-hmm. parked my car by water, mm-hmm. and just sat there and looked at the water. Mm-hmm. I said, and it was like, whew, it was like a load was lifted, just getting away, just going out there, watching the water, watching the boats and everything else. It was relaxing.
Yes.
And I think that sometimes we don't do that. It's so simple. It didn't cost me a dime to do it. I mean, a little gas money just to go out there and sit there and be relieved of some stress just by being out there and just meditating, not thinking about anything. I had no radio on, didn't turn the news on. I'm just looking at nature. Mm-hmm. And it was calming and it was relaxing. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the kind of thing that I think we're talking about now, that those are the kind of things we can do. You can do that anytime.
Yes.
Anytime.
Last week, I did the same thing. I didn't go to the water. I did that over the summer, though. But last week, I just went to the backyard. One of my colleagues was saying that the moon was going to be pretty. And she said, if y'all get a chance to look at the moon, it's going to be really, really big. And so I said, oh, okay. I didn't think about it when I heard it that earlier in the day. But when I finished up my day, I have a practice for because I'm always on the computer, especially now that we're doing teletherapy, like I'm just constantly on a screen, that once my work day is over, all of my laptops are closed down and my phone is closed down. I just don't look at a screen as a way of trying to replenish through the night. But when I closed everything down, I said, oh, I remembered what they said about the moon. So we just went out to the backyard and I have a little fire pit back there, and we threw a little log in and lit the fire because it was a little chilly here. And in the back of our house, the moon rises back there, and we just sat out there and looked at the moon. There was no sound, no music. I
Right.
mean, fire. You could hear the fire, but we just cuddled up with a blanket and just looked at the moon.
Hmm.
There's actual studies. They call it grounding, but and some people believe, some people don't. But if we have a moment to connect ourselves back with nature, it actually resets things in our brain and in our physical chemistry. Now, some
Mhm.
people believe, you have to stand and put your feet in the grass for so long with nothing. I've done it all. I put my feet in the grass. I put them in the sand. I love all things beach. And I won't say that I feel a whole lot of difference whether I do that or if I'm just out there enjoying it. But that is what kind of restores you. If you can
Yes.
just get a moment to pull away from the hustle and bustle of city life, you know,
Mhm.
and just get away to something a little bit more serene. It's why
Yeah,
most of us go there for vacation, right? Somewhere
yeah,
serene.
it's amazing that we're talking about this because what Marcus, Rance, okay, I walk practically every day. Every day I walk. One day I'm walking out of Alum Creek before they decided to do some revamping of the bridge. So I'm walking about 7:30 in the morning. It's calm, it's quiet. I said to myself, I'm it's it's so quiet out here. Wouldn't it be nice if the city was this quiet?
Mhm.
It was just quiet. It was just relaxing. And you're walking, you say, man, it just feels good to be out here where there's no noise.
Mhm.
I can imagine that's why Jesus would steal away and pray
Mhm.
to a place where there was no noise. He didn't have to worry about a woman having issue of blood. He didn't have to worry about a lady with a son being carried in a casket down the street. He didn't have to worry about a man being born blind. He just went away to a quiet place to pray.
Mm.
And you can understand why that was so necessary. Just to get away, just to have your mind cleared.
Mhm.
And I think that that's what people don't do a lot of today. And I think that's why we're so stressful because we don't do a lot of that. This is really crazy, but I'm a Fred Sanford kind of guy. And I have to watch my show every time it comes on, Sanford and Son, right?
Big
Well,
dummy.
I can, I promise you, I could see the same series 3 times a week, and I declare I will laugh every time. The same season, I can almost tell you what's going to happen, and I'm laughing, and all of a sudden, so when you understand, even laughter is therapeutic,
Mhm.
and we need to find something to laugh about. We
Mhm.
don't have any. We're making everything so serious. We can't even laugh.
You know
Mhm.
what's funny about that, Bishop? That you say that? Okay, so the day before yesterday, when everything, the election and all this stuff, instead of turning on
Right.
the news, I put CNN on. So I threw it on Netflix and I listened to just some of the comedy specials that they had on Netflix. Of course, they're not gospel comedians, but
I
I decided to tamp down the stress. And
Yeah.
here's the reason why. So typically I don't get on social media the first thing in the morning. I try not to. And the morning after the election, I did. And all I saw was, all the Biden supporters. Oh, I can't believe it. That Trump is about to win and blah, blah, blah. I said, man, let me get off this. I decided to buckle down, clean up, get to cleaning, turn on some comedy, and just laugh. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying about that is absolutely the honest to goodness truth. I could have cared less about anything going on with Trump and Biden because I was so busy laughing.
Absolutely.
And I think one thing that we talked about nature. One thing that I learned was to appreciate nature this summer. Going bike riding. So, excuse me, I live outside of the city, and there are trails where I live, and I'm able to go and do that. And one of the things I thought a lot about you, Rance, because as I would be out, and I would just pull out my phone and just start taking pictures because it is so relaxing and so therapeutic. It's so filling just to observe all of God's creation, seeing the water, seeing the trees, hearing the birds, the ducks and whatever other animals that are floating on the water there, geese, yes, the thought, right? But being able to observe that, or sometimes at night, Pastor, you talked about, I remember this was a few months ago, I just decided I needed to get out. It had been a stressful day at work, and I needed to get out. But as I was driving, I saw the moon. It was a full moon.
Right.
And here in Central Ohio, I was driving up Sunbury Road I was driving down the road, and it was towards Hoover Reservoir. And I saw the moon, and I said, man, I can just drive straight to the water. The road dead ends at the water and see the moon. And I snapped some photos, and that's when I thought about Rance. I was like, man, if I had some professional photographer equipment, I could capture a great shot. But it was so relaxing and so therapeutic. The other day, talking about humor, needing to de-stress, it was an evening. I found myself, and don't laugh at me, brothers, but I ended up watching, it was a romantic comedy, right? And then because the evening was still young and I did not want to watch any news, there was nothing sports related on that I wanted to see. And I really just wanted to decompress my mind. I ended up watching the Hallmark Channel. It was some Christmas.
My.
I know, pal. I know. I had to turn in my macho man card.
Yeah,
man.
I guess.
It was right up there. I'm sitting there, and you catch a few minutes. It was like, it's kind of cute. And then half an hour goes by. Now you're all into the movie, so you might as well finish it out. But it was so relaxing. It was out of the norm. It was different. It was not something that I normally do. But it was that time to just release and let go. I didn't have to hear about COVID numbers. I didn't have to hear about what was going to take place with the election. I didn't have to hear about, bad news. Somebody shot somebody or somebody died or anything like that. It was just, some corny holiday movie on the Hallmark Channel. But, it took my mind away. So I think, laughter, as you all alluded to, or nature, those are good things, I think, that we as believers, got to learn to do.
Absolutely.
You're not alone, Brother Marcus. My husband has always watched Hallmark Christmas. He has them all on the DVR every year. So much so that our boys love it. They got mad the other day because they were like, oh, watching cheesy. They call them cheesy Christmas movies.
Yes.
Oh, God. It's Christmas in July, right?
Right. It's like, that speaks to one piece that I don't think we've talked about yet, and that's nurture. We don't do enough nurturing, right? So those kind of things, looking at stuff that gives you hope, being able to connect with someone, to love, to experience great, beautiful things, gratitude. Those are things that nurture the spirit.
Yeah.
All the rest of this noise depletes the spirit, right? Because if you listen to too much of it, you can lose faith. You can lose hope. You're like, God, where are you? And how are you letting these things happen? 230,000 people? How, Lord? How? But when we take a moment to meditate and to pray and reconnect with the Father, when we have a moment to look at cheesy, they don't mean that you know how they're going to end, but to be able to see love or see hope, it just nurtures you back to a place where you could say, you know what, I can just go a little bit further.
That's
I
right.
may not be able to know that I'm gonna make it to the end, but I can at least make it to tomorrow. And then if I nurture tomorrow, I can make it to the next day. And that's really how we get through these more oppressive moments in our lives. That's how we make it. It's just going back. I just think about sometimes when I read those biblical stories, they had that sense of us apart, kind of together, where they really stayed connected to what mattered. And we need to do that too, even in this day.